But the idea of extraterrestrials fighting among themselves does not surprise me, because that's what we do. And I don't think there's an idea. The idea of them concerned about us leaving this planet and going somewhere to start anew is ludicrous, in my opinion, because if those entities, extraterrestrials, whatever we want to call them, are that smart to be able to get here with the kind of technology they have, they're obviously not going to allow us to go anywhere. We've already proven what we can do. We mess up and destroy everything we touch, and then we kill each other. So I am sure that they are looking at our Earth and saying that these creatures are doing what they're doing to their own planet. They're not going anywhere. We're going to keep them right here and let them kill each other, but not coming out here where we are. So I don't think they're going to allow us to go anywhere. I doubt that we could even exist or survive anywhere else than the Earth anyway, because I think we probably are designed for this particular planet. But the idea that there's a war going on among the extraterrestrials kind of fits with what the secret societies talked about, as above, so below.
I agree with you. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that suggests the intervention that some of these UFOs have been seen to participate in over our nuclear arsenal is not so much about saving us from ourselves, but saving the planet after we're done with it. Mm-hmm. But going back to your earlier question, is it possible that there is more than one race of extraterrestrials interacting with us? Absolutely. Is it?
Now, with the advent of the digital camera, the little digital cameras you can buy, people are taking pictures with these things, 10 megapixels, 2 megapixels, 1 megapixel, and they're on vacation, and they take a photograph, and they're taking photographs of hillsides, of, in Hawaii, and the Canary Islands, in Spain, and they're taking pictures, and when they get home and they download their photographs, there's UFOs, clear UFOs in the shots that they didn't see at the time of the photography, which would have to mean that these UFOs are invisible to the human eye, but they're actually there. They're not optical illusions, they're really there because the camera can see into the invisible, can actually see these UFOs. Now, there are numerous cases, even recently. This amazing photograph taken by Robert de Siena, a former military officer in Brazil. He did not see this at the time of photography. He was just taking pictures. And he erased most of them. And you're looking at one of the most stunning photographs of a UFO I've ever seen. I mean, as we zoom in on this thing, we can clearly see it's metallic, it's disc-shaped, the sun is actually shining off of it, but he didn't see it when he took the picture. And the reason that is because, for example, the human brain pulses between 24 and 30 waves per second. It's like a camera. It's taking 24 and 30 pictures per second. If you run your hand in front of your face like this, you can actually see your hand leaves a little bit of a strobe trail, and it's not instantaneous. That's because the brain is taking pictures depending on the frequency of the brain, and that's why it doesn't see all of the information. In between the 24 or 30 frames or waves per second that the brain is pulsing, there's information. And if your brain could strobe in a much higher frequency fashion, you could capture the information in between those pulses. These UFOs are pulsing. Trevor James Constable's first book was called The Cosmic Pulse of Light, because they found that the UFOs have a pulse. They're vibrating at very high frequency wavelengths, which means the human brain isn't fast enough to capture them.
Given to it, and the name by which it was known in naval circles.
Trevor James Constable, a New Zealand naval radar operator in World War II, was the pioneer of invisible photography. In the 1950s in California, Trevor took these amazing photographs of UFOs over Landers, Giant Rock, California, where George Van Tassel was channeling extraterrestrials. The photos are so stunning to me because they show translucent discs of light, UFOs with dark holes in the center, identical to the NASA STS-75 UFOs from the space shuttle in 1996, in February 1996. So we have the same UFOs confirmed from two different sources over 40 years apart. So if you look at very closely what's going on, NASA is saying that these are pieces of debris floating right in front of the camera lens, and as they get in front of the lens, you get these fuzzy orbs of light called airy disks around them and giving the illusion they're UFOs. But if they were really that close to the camera, as NASA contends, how would they survive a long zoom? I did a very simple test with a digital camera, just like they're using. You hold a dime, which is bigger than any piece of dust you could find, and you hold it even a couple of inches or 6 inches in front of the camera. When you zoom in, you can't even see the dime. It disappears completely. And NASA's cameras zoom all the way in on the tether, which is 77 to 100 miles away from the camera, and the objects are still there. There's no way these are pieces of debris that are near the camera lens. There's no way, which confirms that they're actually as large as we say they are. They're passing behind the tether. The tether is 12 miles long. The UFOs are 2 to 3 miles wide in diameter, 1 to 3 miles in diameter, if they're right behind the tether. If they're further behind the tether than we think, they are much larger than that. And second, I confirmed with Dr. Joseph Newth III at NASA that NASA's video cameras can see into the near ultraviolet and the far ultraviolet, which is 2 bandwidths of ultraviolet, into the invisible spectrum where human eyes don't see.
Welcome back. According to my next guest, the truth is out there, actually up there, with our neighbor to the north, Canada. A former Canadian government official is warning we may be on the verge of intergalactic war, saying, quote, the Bush administration has finally agreed to let the military build a forward base on the moon, which will put them in a better position to keep track of the comings and goings of visitors from space, and to shoot at them if they so decide, end quote.
Reports that showed that some of them were, in fact, unidentified. Some of the sightings could not be explained as natural phenomenon, but nothing more than that.
Well, as you know, there's been this debate for years over whether or not they are real. Most people don't think they are real, or most people at least are hesitant to say they believe they're real in public. What convinced you that they do in fact exist?
Well, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been looking at the evidence and assessing it much as, I guess, a judge would, and trying to determine who was telling the truth and who wasn't. And I finally concluded, especially after reading a book called The Day After Roswell, written by Colonel Philip Corso, that unidentifying flying objects are in fact real as the airplanes flying over your head, and that there has been a monumental cover-up for more than half a century. This is after looking at a lot of evidence and trying to discern who was telling the truth and who wasn't, and I have concluded unequivocally that the people who claim that they have either seen UFOs or have seen classified documents about UFOs or have seen wreckage from the crash at Roswell on or about July the 4th of 1947 are the ones who are telling the truth. And consequently, I'm basing my my policy considerations on that.
Where did you come across this information that the Bush administration is building a forward base on the moon, and why would they do that, and why would they keep it from the public?
Well, to answer your second question first, I don't know. That is the reason I'm raising the question.
Right. Well, how do you that's an awfully specific claim. I haven't read it in the New York Times. Doesn't mean it's not true. Doesn't mean you're wrong. But I'm interested to know why you think that.
Well, because this was forecast in Colonel Corso's book. They were wanting to build a base on the moon as far back as 1964.
Pardon me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but doesn't this make sense? I mean, if in fact there are extraterrestrials and they're buzzing our planet, why wouldn't we want to take steps to defend ourselves from them should they turn hostile?
Well, I think the critical question is whether or not they're hostile. You see, when the crash first occurred, General Nathan Twining
in Roswell
later became after that crash occurred, he declared that they were enemy alien. Now, there's no evidence that I have seen that would really convince me that they are in fact, enemy. And what I would like to know is whether that classification of enemy alien still exists or whether it doesn't, and if it exists, what the evidence is on which the United States government bases its conclusion. I think that's tremendously important.
I think